Delighted to be joined in studio by the legend that is Brian Kerr. The Audix Siren Delighted, Brian.
Well, I'm delighted that football is really starting again with the league coming on, but it hasn't really been a quiet summer in that there's been plenty of other football on.
Women's World Cup and League of Ireland.
Under 21 European Championships, League of Ireland still going, European games starting so early for the Irish clubs. But of course, the Premier League is a weekly diet of football for the next 9 months, I suppose now, 9-10 months.
You've been going to games for quite a long time now, Premier League wise, Brian, for radio and that, national radio. Painting the pictures to the people back home, like it is a special competition. Give us a sense, like the magic of like the day. You've got Irish fans going over to games and what the whole competition is like.
Well, I think it starts with that, John, when you head out. For me, fortunately enough, I'm going out to the airport. Unfortunately, it's often too early in the morning. But when you get to the airport, there's already a bit of a buzz. You see fellas in all sorts of get-ups and scarves of different clubs. And from Ireland, traditionally, the biggest percentage is Liverpool and Manchester United, of course. And then you've got the others, Manchester City, Chelsea, the bigger name clubs, the clubs that are generally in contention. Arsenal, of course, going back to the days of O'Leary and Brady and Stapleton, have always had huge support. And then there's what I'd call the more traditional ones, the Spurs and Leeds kind of element, and Aston Villa. There's always a big Aston Villa support hanging around the airport as well, and then there's the people who go to Scotland as well. But there's often fellas going to obscure ones and lads going to the likes of Rochdale and Morecambe and Blackburn and Blackburn, of course, have had their great days in the top division Premier League, but. You wonder about fellas why they're going to the likes of Wickham and Bury and Morecambe and so on. And it's just a love of the game. It's an attachment to a club that somewhere along the way someone in the family liked them, or their father lived there.
Maybe they wanted to be individual or something. I'm going to follow that club.
There's a bit of that, and I was a bit like that as a young fella myself. I had a team in every division, and it was usually the team that had a financial crisis that I read about in the paper when I was 10 or 11 or 12, and I'd take a bit of a fondness to that, and I'd watch them for a few seasons, but there's a buzz about that Saturday morning thing. Not always lovely, warm Saturdays. Often it can be a bit windy and threatening. You're wondering how the plane will go and will it go on time.
Any memorable trips from hell, Brian? Or
well, at one particular Saturday, John, you might remember when the plane didn't go at all. I'm sitting on the plane for 2 hours at Dublin Airport. I forget what particular game I was due to do, but the plane never got off at all. In fact, no planes went that Saturday morning, and I ended up getting off the plane 2 hours later.
Probably 2
days later, and not getting to my game at all, having done all my prep work and homework and so on. And you had to come up with some master plan, I think, within yourself and Phil to change things around. I think Matt Holland might have been on TV duty that day. He was due to come to Dublin in a similar kind of way, crossing over, and I ended up doing Matty's job, and I think he did something like that. We did, but other than that, I've had a few days where I've been on the run a little bit tight, and you're running for the train, and you might end up run up the road to hoping that knowing that Ron Jones would have been there on time and have everything in order, and you're just a little bit sweaty and hoping that there'll be no other complications. But normally it's quite smooth. We would arrange that we would all go early enough. I would go early, and I'm normally there hours before the game, and it's often about trying to fill in the time because I can't get into the ground until usually 3 hours before the match. But I'm usually at the ground 3 hours before the match, and the numbers of people hanging around the grounds 3 and 4 hours before the game is what I find extraordinary nowadays. People go and they make a day of it, and they bring small kids with them, particularly from Ireland. I see that, but they're prepared to hang around the ground outside and meet people, shake hands, and go to the shop and laugh and joke and just get into the whole buzz of the day and the anticipation of the game. The games sometimes live up to the expectation, sometimes they don't, but people enjoy the day out anyway.
What do we not see on TV that you see? Is it the quality of them? Is it the quality of the football at that elite level? Is it the different angles? Is it the quality of the stadiums, the product? Like, is there anything we don't see on TV?
Oh, look, you see the efficiency. You don't see the efficiency, I'd say, of the whole security element. I mean, there was about 3 years ago, there was a bit of a change, I thought, in the intensity of the security on the way up the road. Now, your bag usually gets searched, any sort of a bag you have. And there's a lot of people having to do that type of work, and it's not the nicest of work. Then when we get to the ground, and Phil will confirm this, it's a fairly... it's fairly intense search of your bags and so on to make sure, even though they know you're going on a weekly basis, you're working the media. That's one side you answer. Once you get past that, I find in the majority of the ground, the staff are very well trained in a way of being polite towards people. I mean, often the position we're in is a privileged position. We're looking at the crowds and people, stewards standing up and in front of them when there's a goal scored, so they don't invade the pitch and something like that. They're fairly horrible jobs, I would say. So when we're just talking about the commentating on the match and you watch it on television, you probably don't see that type, a lot of that deep organisational work that goes on around the match. And when we're in early, we often see the stewards' meetings, the policemen. I think of Liverpool, particularly the police have meetings close to the media zone there, and you'd often see them coming out in droves where they obviously have had instruction. Now, this is 3 hours before the match, it's 4 hours before the match, but another one then is after the match. They seem to have these debriefs for all the stewards after the game. The other one I notice is generally, I would say the average is about 15 people walk on the pitches after the match. Within the first 5 minutes of the players leaving the pitch, there's already a huge number of lads, generally lads, I'd say. There may be some groundswomen involved, but generally it's lads out on the pitch with mowers, earphones over the head, and they're going along with the kind of mower your mum might have had for the garden maybe 20 years ago, except there's a bit of petrol in it nowadays, and they're wheeling very, very slowly. And this is in December and January. You're saying there couldn't be much growth now. It's dull, it might be drizzling rain, but they're kind of really fine-tuning that pitch to the perfection, the levels we see at the kick-offs every week, but right through the season now, compared to the old days when the pitches were great in August, and September, and then by the time October, November came, they were getting mucky, getting bare down the middle, the goalmouths were getting bare. Now they're just perfect, and so they should be. There's no matches played on them other than the Premier League matches now. Previous years they used to play youth games on them, and they play reserve games. They play. Might get a concert on them now. You get a gig on them now, but they're covered extensively, so that there's nobody stamping their feet or digging a bit of grass up.
So who's done the best bit of business in the transfer window, Brian?
Well, there's obviously today is still going on.
Yeah.
I think Everton will be fairly busy, but I look at Manchester City. The usual with them, they pick their targets. They're very precise in going for it. I know the Cancelo one seemed to only get done yesterday. They got the Rodri one done early, and other than that, there hasn't been much happened. Vincent Kompany has gone away, but I think they had such a depth of in quality and options for players. You might be critical about the centre halves, and when Kompany didn't play, I think he played 18 matches last year and he won 17 of them. And when he didn't play, there was a suggestion that they were vulnerable in the centre backs position. But I thought Laporte did very well. Otamendi, people pick on him at times, but I think he does fine. But they've such a depth. And they see the problem with Fernandinho getting on a little bit, and they say we'll do something about that. And they get Rodri in. He's 6'3", big, energetic, dynamic. Comes from a background of a team, Atletico Madrid, where it's about winning matches. However, we need to win them, and frequently enough with them, it can be having lost a player, going down to 10 men, and they can still win matches because they have that structure and organisation about them, and so like the manager in the battling qualities, and each player understanding his role clearly, being able to play on the counter-attack, suck up pressure, go and win matches against Barcelona, Real Madrid and top opposition, able to do that. Now he's coming from that environment into a team like Manchester City, which is about flowing football, dominating possession, being all over the opposition, rarely having players sent off, I might say, but creating lots of chances, attacking fullbacks sometimes playing in midfield, outnumbering the opposition, leaving their positions as traditional fullbacks to be part of the momentum in the middle of the field, and then the sitting midfield player, in the role that Rodri will come in, dropping in to make a third centre back when the counter attack comes on, or being the one that intercepts the pass forward to the front man, and that will be his role. And it'll be interesting to see his shape, but I'm sure he'll be well capable of it. And then I think Cancelo is a really good player. Juventus,
and he can cover both flanks as well.
He can play both, but he's a typical Manchester City type full back, up and down the line, get there. I was really surprised at times. I watched Juventus last year and he didn't start some of the big Champions League games. I was hugely surprised, ferociously impressed by him when he played with Portugal, playing with Juventus, and even before that. So I think they have done great work. Liverpool haven't done an awful lot. Seem to be relying on the fact that Oxlade-Chamberlain will be back, Gomez will be back at their best, and the depth of the squad. And you just look and say, will they be a bit short if anything happens to the magnificent front three, to Mane, Salah, Firmino, and this year you're saying are they going to have enough outside of them if anything goes wrong to that trio? And Mane has been delayed in the start again this season, so that. I would think on the base of that, I think of that lot, you look at Manchester United and say, right, they needed players, they needed defensive, they got Maguire, they got the right back, Wan-Bissaka, the right from Crystal Palace, who had won glorious seasons as a young player. And they've dealt with that, but has it been enough? We don't know. It'll be what he extracts from the rest of the squad, and if Lukaku goes, has he got enough for the front positions? I've always felt Martial probably should be playing through the middle, that was his initial position, and he was forced out to the wide position. Can they get Alexis Sanchez doing something this year rather than doing nothing? Rashford playing through the middle, I like him through the middle, but if they have to depend on him for the 38 league games and the other games they have to play in the European competition and whatever else, they may not have enough there. But let's see what happens over the day. Will Lukaku actually go? It looks like that's going to happen. Anyone else that's done great business? It's hard to know. I think Everton have been busy, but
Spurs and Arsenal.
Well, Arsenal, I got to take Arsenal first. They needed to do. They needed a bit of. I suppose rehaul at the back is always the problem for Arsenal.
David Luiz, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's a bit of a mad one, isn't it? All of a sudden, I mean, he seems to have been such a key player for Chelsea, in and out, away and come back, and you're back again. You go to PSG. Emery worked with him at PSG. Yeah. He obviously liked him.
Yeah.
He obviously liked him, but yet they let him out, right? They let him go, and he's such a main player at Chelsea, and his game developed as time went on. Seems a bit of a mad one.
Just signed a new contract as well.
Exactly, and you wonder what's going on. And I saw something reference to the appointment of new technical director in Edu coming in. I don't know why that should influence you as a player wanting to go to a club who the fella who was going to be technical director or whatever his title is, director of football, he's not going to be picking the team or influencing the style of the team. He might influence the players that are coming in, but I'd imagine it's a money thing. It's usually a money thing, isn't it? I mean, it's hardly a thing where he's saying, I want to go to Arsenal because I want to win.
Well, maybe it might be the relationship with Emery,
that's what I said. I mentioned that he knew him from previous, but it's hardly one that he said, I want to get out of Chelsea because Arsenal are more likely
play for the team
win.
that we just thumped in the Europa League final a few months ago.
I have a bit of sympathy for them because we lashed them in that final, and now if I go to them, I'll change it around and we could win it. If I go to Arsenal, I thought that's a bit of a strange one, but they certainly needed to deal with that central defensive position. Socrates, Mustafi, Chambers, the other one, isn't it, for the centre back position?
Yeah, Holding as well, who's been injured.
Sorry, Holding. Yeah. But they had to deal with that. The midfield position, they've got attacking talent. I think it'll be a big step for them. Spurs. Spurs. I think the fact that Eriksen is still around is surprising. What time we Now you get towards half 11
Well, he
in the
can still
day.
go. I think till September the 2nd. He can still go to Europe, and maybe culturally he wants to get out.
Yeah,
of
well,
England.
I think it's good news for Spurs, John, if he doesn't go to another
Man United,
English club. And, I think Spurs fans would have said, "Oh no, not a Michael Carrick type job. If he goes there, that'd be disappointing if he went." I don't think they'd be too upset. He'd be less upset if he goes to one of the major European clubs if that's still on. Look, so I'd be interested to see him. I haven't been over impressed with him as an international player, but I'm sure Spurs have done due diligence on him and have decided that
It looks good. I covered Real Betis a few times last season, and
I didn't see an awful lot of
impressed with him. The way they played. Canales was the other kind of standout player for them, but he has that technical ability, which it's an upgrade from what they have. If you look at, obviously, Ndombele coming in as well, you think of the midfield that would have had. Harry Winks is going to be a starter. Now, he seems to be over his injuries, so you'd imagine Eric Dyer is going to be pushed out, but he's always an option for centre half.
A lot of matches to be played as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
there's no need. There's no point really looking at the best 11 at this time. It's not really about best 11. I often hear that phrase about managers. He doesn't know what his best 11 is, and you'd hear me talking about this during matches on Saturday. It's you only need to have your best 11 each week from what's available to you to win that match. So, but Harry Winks, I think, will be in it. He's a different type of. He passes it better than Dyer's, he's quicker moving the ball around. He doesn't need a second touch when it needs to be played forward. I like him. I have to say I've liked him since he's been in the squad. But I think the Ndombele one, he's been impressive, and I think he will add something in there. And they need a bit of freshness. I mean, my concern about it is that it's still the same gang. Trippier's gone out. There's not much else has happened. Sessegnon may come in. He was a bit of the Fulham full back. Didn't have a great season in the Premier League. Huge expectancy for him last year. Was looking forward to seeing him, and he was playing in an advanced position at times on the wing, but he didn't have a great season. But he may be better at Spurs because they'll have a lot more of the ball. There'll be a lot more stability at Spurs. If that one happens today, there's another.
That's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's 25 million for Sessegnon. Good question from Damien on YouTube for the panel. Is the lack of appointing a director of football the biggest letdown or issue of Manchester United's summer signings?
Well, there was a suggestion that was going to happen, and really it was a criticism.
Rio Ferdinand was mentioned at one stage.
But that was the type of thing that was going on, and you're going, well, what was Rio Ferdinand's qualities and qualifications for being director of football? If the director of football role is really about negotiations, recruitment, what are the qualifications for that job? The qualifications for that job are, on the negotiation side, is experience of doing deals and sitting down with people, and it's hard work in terms of the minutiae of contracts and getting those contracts over the line. I heard you mention Daniel Levy earlier, who is obviously at this stage. He's extraordinarily good at it, extracting the maximum when they're selling and then paying the least possible when they're buying. Now, with a rookie, I would call him Ferdinand, been good at that. The next most important thing is obviously contacts in the game, understanding how agents work, understanding the marketplace and where the reliable agents are and reliable information is in relation to players. I would not have seen Ferdinand as being in the class. I suppose
is it really the thing that, like, can Solskjaer carry this on his own for Manchester United this season?
Well, I don't think so. I think there's Manchester United and all other Premier Division clubs and Championship clubs, I would suggest, it's just too massive of a job now. I look at the amount of media work managers have to do. They seem to have to. They almost seem like it's an obligation to nearly do press conferences daily. I know they have so many matches they have to do before the match and then they have to do after match, but it almost appears to me now the number of media interviews they have to do is exceptional to me. You know, that there's a fair old drain, I think, in that, even because people they're trying to couch the language and being positive all the time, no matter how results are going, and to give out strong messages to the players first of all, and to the fans, and to the board, and to the employers, and all that. That's difficult. But then they've all the training stuff to do, then they've all the scouting to do, then they've got to work at the underage, keep an eye on what's going on. If they're doing the job well, they've got to keep an eye on all that, in potential signings for the future. It's a massive workload with scouting, watching the opposition, going to games when they're not playing themselves, keeping an eye on the development of the player. So they need help. There is no doubt about it. They need other people in the club. Manchester United, one of the massive clubs of the world, need people. Whether Woodward has done a good job is very debatable. A lot of people would feel that it's been scattergun approach in relation to signings and competitions in the market. They've probably paid over the odds to get Maguire, but people are happy that they've got him. Wan-Bissaka, have they paid over the odds for him? We won't know until we see him playing the regular basis. Maguire, in a new environment now, he's had it's been a fairly cosy rise for him, I'd nearly say. I mean, I saw him at Hull when we were covering the games previously, and Hull were relegated, but I thought he looked outstanding, and I predicted a bit of a future for him. And then he went to Leicester. He had the great. I'm not saying pressure on Leicester as there is in Manchester United. So let's see how it goes. But I think he's a great signing for them.
You see, this is what it's all about. Matthew Reardon on Twitter, at Off the Ball, transfer deadline day, watch from Dubai. Great show so far, guys, at John Duggan Affiligan and Brian Kerr as well. Offtheball.com/radio, on the Go Lad app if you want to listen. Until midnight tonight, we got great shows coming out throughout the day. And also, if you want to watch us, you can watch us on YouTube as well. Get your comments in on our social channels at Off the Ball. Peter on YouTube, Liverpool are not making signings because Fenway don't want to spend money, as they're afraid the pound will crash after Brexit, are waiting to see what will happen. They're very shrewd business-wise. Is there a risk Liverpool overperformed last year, Brian, and will regress this season?
No, I don't think so. I think Manchester City won the competition that Liverpool wanted to win, and Liverpool won the one Manchester City wanted to win. And this year, if they could turn it around, they'd both be very happy. But I think we should remember that in the last two seasons, Liverpool finished 25 points ahead of Chelsea last year, who were third place, and in the previous season the gap was even bigger as far as Spurs. It was I just think that those two are so far ahead of the others.
Who's going to be the winner?
I have to go towards Manchester City again. I think it's a hard one for him to do it 3 times in a row. In the Premier League, I think it'd be difficult, but just looking at the depth of the squad again and the options they have in the attacking positions, that I think they'll have the edge again on Liverpool. I would like someone else to win it, obviously, but that's that.
If Sané was to go, what do you think?
I don't think that would make a dramatic difference. I just think that they have so many options in those attacking positions. I think Sané is just one of them, and we haven't seen, what else they have in reserve for coming through other than Foden. And I think they've got other young players ready to jump into the slots there. But you look at Jesus, he looked like he was going to take Aguero's place at times over the last 2 seasons, but he hasn't. It's inspired Aguero to be better, to work harder, chase harder in the team ethic, as well as continue to score a phenomenal number of goals. And I just think with David Silva's last season, he's looked very good in the pre-season. He looks as sharp as ever. I just think that, and that I'm looking at Liverpool saying, are they going to depend on Shaqiri and Origi as the options for the front three? Will they have enough there? Certainly in the middle of the field, Liverpool will be good, and Oxlade-Chamberlain coming back into it, if he's fitting well, that's going to be probably gradual, his impact. Gomez at the back, they should be stable, obviously.
Left back, if something happened, Robertson, he doesn't get injuries, but the odd game, I suppose, James Milner can cover. Yeah,
but that was 2 or 3 years ago. We saw the best of him doing that job in the left back position. But I think there's with Keita and Fabiano, I think they've got options there to juggle about. They're fairly. There's players of capable of rotating positions and changing positions. But look, it's fine line stuff. 100 points and 98 points the last 2 seasons, Manchester City, and yet Liverpool got 97 last year and couldn't beat them. Are they going to go down to something like mid 80s or low 90s this year? It's hard to see it. They're so far ahead of the others, these 2 teams.
Who are the other 2 teams then? Who are 3rd and 4th in your book at the moment, Brian?
Well, the top 4. The last 3 seasons, the top 6 have been the same.
Yeah.
Now, the top 2, I think Spurs have been much more consistent in recency, but they lost 20 games last year. But I still think they had a lot to put up with last year in terms of are we going, are we not going, are we getting out of Wembley, are we going back to White Hart Lane? And that's over. That's been going on for a couple of seasons where we've been in Wembley and it's hard going, and the home record was so outstanding at White Hart Lane the last season. They were unbeaten at Tottenham. So I think Spurs, in a more settled situation, they haven't got the bother. Last year, the majority of the team were away playing the World Cup. Don't have that problem this year. I think the team should be fresher and more stable. And for that reason, and the manager staying, I think Spurs will be in the top 4. Out of the other 3, I think Chelsea are the more likely of the others, because I think Lampard will have an impact. But they've got a lot of good players there, a lot of young players, and even though the manager has changed and they can't sign players, I think the thing is a lot more stable. There'll be a lot less madness, to be more positivity, more positive about the Sarri thing. Got off to a good start the first 14 games, but then it seemed negativity seemed to come upon them, and the support were negative towards the manager, and he seemed to be trying to explain himself, and it was difficult. His English wasn't brilliant. And there was a negativity around Chelsea last year, and despite that, they still had a very good season, finishing top 4, and win the Europa League, beaten by the cup by a penalty. But I think with Lampard, they'll still be there. So that'll be my 4. I think the other 2 will get out too.
Breakthrough team, breakout team, or like Everton, Wolves, Leicester, can they do something, or is there still a gap there? Well,
I think there's still a gap there. Wolves have been very, very, very good last season. They won't be a surprise this season. I think there'll be a lot more respect of them. They played excellent football and weren't afraid, and they went and took on the best teams away from home. They weren't, we see a lot of the teams outside of that, the top 6, they go away from home against the top 6, and they sit in and try and play the counter, and it can be quite boring waiting to see the breakthrough. Not boring, but just you kind of go, why don't you have a bit of a go? What's the sense in having a match and spending millions on players, and you play a match and you bring 5,000 supporters to the ground and they're sitting there just hoping that you'll have a breakaway? Wolves weren't like that. They had a go, and I think Leicester were very much like that as well. The Rodgers played very good football, and they seem to have had a good summer. Losing Maguire might not have a huge impact on Leicester. Everton, they seem to have had a good time, and they're still busy, and there's still talk of them getting deals done today. They're trying to get Zaha over the line. But have they got somebody that's going to bang in goals? Because obviously Cenk Tosun couldn't do it. Calvert-Lewin. And then to sign the young lad. They have to sign him they can as well. Yeah, who I like the look of him, I have to say. But it's a big task to become the main man of Everton. The tradition of the Everton. The Bob Latchford.
You're walking into Goodison Park and there's Dixie Dean's statue.
And that's a big mantle to take on in a new league for a young player. He's got pace and he's direct and plays well, but they've had a succession. They got Calvert-Lewin who's played quite well. Played well last season, but doesn't score the number of goals. You mentioned Tosun doesn't score enough goals. Richarlison can be a bit in and out, but certainly a threat in the attacking position. Midfield players, good piece of business to retain Gomez. He's not a new player. There'll not be made. They signed Gomez. They had him last year, and he played very well. He's a good player. They lost Gay, haven't they? He's a big player. To lose him, replacing him might be another kettle of fish.
Are you worried for Seamus Coleman with CDB coming in?
would you be worried for him? Certainly, the competition for a place, he's rarely had much competition except from the younger players who've loaned out some this year, and he's come back really well. Last season had a bit of a problem where there'd been criticism from the supporters, and he reacted to that. He scored a goal one day, but as the season went on, he seemed to be back to the Seamus Coleman that we and Everton supporters all loved. I'm sure he will take on that in his own style. He's a great fella. He's a absolutely brilliant lad on and off the pitch, and I'm sure his character, he'd be saying, all right, they've signed the fella players right back. Well, we'll see how he does, because I'm not going to give up this position. But there has to be, I think Sadabi's the type of player who is capable of moving around a bit and playing in different positions. He's big, athletic, gets forward from the full back position very, very well. But you know, he might play in a more advanced position for them, or he may play in a central position for them. Let's see how that comes. And you kind of threw it, I feel, earlier. There's a lot of games to be played, a lot of matches, a lot of things happen over a season. You need. I know teams not involved in Europe, you don't need quite so many, but you still have lots of competition. The League Cup, the likes of Everton have to have a go in the cup competitions, and that's been the frustration, I think, for their supporters and supporters of the likes of Newcastle and so on, that they don't pay real attention to have a go in the cup competition. As a Spurs fan, I'd like to win a cup. I'd like to win something under Pochettino.
James McCarthy's gone to Palace. We got Scott Hogan's gone to Stoke. We've got the two lads we know at Sheffield United, Callum Robinson, David McGoldrick. You know yourself what it's like to go to Tbilisi and to Switzerland. We have them in October away from home. We're hoping we'll qualify. The Irish lads in English football, what's your kind of sense of how all that's going to look at the moment?
My sense of it is that there's very few matches that I've been covering over the last few years on radio, particularly where we've had Irish lads playing, and it's disappointing. I mean, look, you know, it might, to throw it back to the criticism myself as manager of Ireland, I could go to a Spurs match on a Sunday, and there was a time when we would have had Stephen Kerr and Andy Reid and Robbie Keane playing, and Gary Doherty even playing in the starting team, you know, at Spurs. And they might be playing United with John O'Shea and Roy Keane in the team. And I could go to matches. I could go to Everton, and we would have had, you know, Kevin would have been playing in the middle of the field, and we'd have one or two in the opposition, whoever that was. We don't have that situation now, unfortunately. We're looking at the majority of our players in the Premier League this year. We had Sheffield United, you know, we have four at Sheffield United, and you know, Seamus Coleman is probably the player at the highest ranking team. Other maybe Matt Doherty. Outside of those, we don't have anyone up above that. So the hope is that maybe Troy Parrott might start getting a few games.
What do you make of him? What do you make of him?
Well, look,
it's very early to say, is it?
It's very early to say, but he's been very promising. I saw him in some of the under-17 internationals last season, not this season. He missed out on the finals, unfortunately, this year, which was a big loss for Tom Moan going to those finals, to lose a player who was on the edge of somebody's first team. I mean, again, going back to when I managed the underage international teams, and we had some very successful teams. The majority of the players when we won the European Champions in '98 were already first team players, including Richard Dunn, Steve McPhail at Leeds, Richard at Everton, Robbie was in the team at Wolves. We had several players at the time that Thomas Healy was playing at Huddersfield. Barry Quinn was playing at Coventry. Now we don't have a 19 or 20-year-old player playing in anybody's team and anybody's first team.
Are you despairing a bit for Irish football, Brian? I've seen a lot of commentary that obviously the FAI, they've had a lot of...
Despair about the FAI, John, rather than about Irish football. I think the players are going to... We'll players to be another era of players. They won't make the impact they did in the past. That's gone because of... It's now the whole world is playing the British Premiership. The number of... The players are coming from Africa and South America.
But can you have that without a strong organisation here?
The organisation should be a lot better than it is, and that would help towards the development of players, the investment in the right areas, a bit of visionary thinking in relation to how we develop the players and what the system is and where are the next pathways for the players to come through to the international teams and the pathways for them. It's been a very narrow thinking that they go to the British clubs and that it's either there or nowhere. We don't seem to have the contacts or the links to get them to any other type of football other than British football. Not that there's too much wrong with British football and the styles of it now, but certainly the education of players. You see some of the opposition that we play, the range of countries their players are playing in. We'll see it with Switzerland when we play it. We see it with Denmark, where their players are coming from lots of different environments, different countries, where they're getting their education to come together. Then they play the international team, and nothing phases them, nothing shocks them. But I think we'll qualify for Euro 2020. It's become easier and easier. 24 teams, 2 out of the group. And then there's another way in from the Europe, the Nations League thing, and so on. I don't have much doubt, but they've started very well. We've got 10 points. Swiss match is a difficult match. We've a history with Switzerland which wasn't great for both Mick and myself. I might add, we found Switzerland a hard nut to crack, and it'll be the same this time. Switzerland have been very, very good lately. Petkovic is a very good manager, some outstanding players, and they'll be a tough one. But I think Mick and the team showed in Denmark that there's a resilience about them. There's a clarity of roles and style of playing is now in place. I don't think it was there under the previous regime. And I think that will benefit us, because I think we need to have that. We can't be an off-the-cuff type of team. That's not the way football is now. At an international level, the depth of the analysis is huge, I'd say. I wouldn't say it's extraordinary. It's what you're supposed to do if you're in that job. But there are no surprises, and nobody is going to put out players that you shouldn't know before you play them. So you have to be prepared for that. You players have to be prepared for that. You have to respect the opposition. We cannot be blasé about and think, well, we're Ireland, we've lots of players playing at the championship level in England, we've some in the Premier League, and we'll be better than whatever the opposition is. It's not like that. You've got to be right on top of it. And I think Mick's way, that's how he does his stuff. While respecting the opposition, he will get the maximum from the players he has available to him, and he's clear thinking in his choice of players, the way he goes about his business. He's got, they've started well. Matches have been tight, haven't been brilliant, but they got themselves into a position where we've got a good chance in the group. But the FAI stuff is different. Football goes on. We saw Dundalk last night playing Slovan Bratislava, lost 1-0. Are still in a great chance next week in the game. Unfortunately, from their point of view, they have to play in Tallaght rather than in Dundalk. I think they'd have a much better chance if they were playing in Dundalk in a tighter, more compact ground, all-weather pitch, compared to Tallaght, which is a lovely surface now and is more like a real small modern stadium. But, my point is that football is going on, the league is busy, the league is going on.
In spite of everything.
In spite of what's going on. And that's the reality of it. Like, the administrators shouldn't be in the headlines. They should just be running the game.
We shouldn't know who they are.
We probably shouldn't, unless we need to, unless we're closely involved and we're observing their work. But we shouldn't really have to. As in other sports, we don't really pay too much attention to the leaders of the other main sports in Ireland. We just let them get on with it, because we know that, we generally feel that they've been run with efficiency and integrity and with a vision for their own sports, whereas we haven't had that, and we seem to be a bit away from it at the moment too, while all the change is going on.
Yeah, and just even going back to football, you're talking about Mick McCarthy there. We know that his reign will be over after the Euros, but we saw, if you got to see any, I don't know if you got to see.
Took a bit of genius to come up with that idea, I have to say.
I know, and we don't know how that's going to work out, because...
Well, we know how it's going to work out. If the truth of the word, Mick is going to get sacked, or he's going to be discarded if we win the European Championships, he's going to leave, because in their wisdom, the FAI decided that they had another manager who would be better than Mick, who would have to wait his turn, but that turn is already set in stone when that's going to happen, and it's going to be at the end of the European Championship. It's bizarre. I mean, look, Stephen Kenny's he's an excellent manager. He's done a great job in Irish football.
So it's unfair on both men, really.
Well, I don't think Stephen Kenny feels unfair. I think he feels I'm good enough to get the job, and I'm going to take the job when the time comes. I don't think it's unfair on him. I think it's unfair on Mick to give somebody a job and say, we're giving you a time limit in that job that we're telling you, no matter how well you do that job, your time is going to be up, because we have decided on this in advance that the other man, Stephen Kenny, is going to be better at doing the job than you in a year's time, which was the case when they appointed him. It was a bizarre arrangement, but look, that seems to be, and it may work out that Mick does a great job through the Euros. We qualify, we play well, probably won't win it, and then Mick is replaced and walks away. He'll be well paid.
Players go, why are we getting rid of this guy?
Well, players are players. They just be glad if the next guy picks them. That's how players are. Once you're in favour with the next guy, that's their attitude. I hope he likes me.
We have about 8 minutes left, Brian, and thanks for everything. Offtheball.com/radio. Go Loud app. You can listen to us until midnight tonight. I've got so many great guests coming up. Johnny Giles, Gary Breen, John Walters for the rest of the day. Just a few kind of quick answers, Brian. VAR, much of an impact?
I think they've worked very hard in England to try and ensure they don't have the teething problems that have been there in international football and other countries. I heard one of the referees saying they've been working on it and training and preparing for it for 2.5 years. So let's hope they get it quite right. I like it. I like the tension about what's the decision going to be. I think that the crowds need to be more informed.
It's actually going to be on the screen.
Yeah.
There's only 2 grounds in the Premier League that
Manchester United and
Liverpool, which is bizarre.
They're not big clubs. It's a bit like...
So you're going to be on those flights, Brian. You're going to be on those flights on Saturday nights, and everybody's going to be asking you what happened. Because there's nobody on those flights who's not a Manchester United or Liverpool fan.
Fair enough. But sometimes in the media area, Manchester United, it's hard to see in front of you. You're so squashed, John, as you know there. It's the most uncomfortable position to watch matches. In many ways, it's kind of bizarre how tight the positions are at Manchester. But look, I go back to VAR. I think it's a good thing. I think they are intent in trying to get it right, that it's not going to be too frequently used, and that the referees are not going to have to go to the sideline, because that's the one that seems to take up a lot of time. When the referee, the word in his ear, and you need to have a look at this and make your own mind up, and then he has to go over and you look at and making that decision. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. It's hard to have a clear head in the stadium with 50,000 people and shouting and roaring and whistling, booing, and probably a few coaches around giving you an earful. Make that decision. I think their intent is to keep those things down to a minimum. I hope it works well, but I'm happy that it's in. The handball one is the one that may be the one that has the most controversy this year.
It's a different interpretation in the Premier League, which again
is a bit bizarre. Yeah, it should be across the game. It should be the same interpretation across the world of football.
Because one that we think of is Sissoko in the Champions League final. You knew as soon as you saw it was going to VAR, they're going to give it because it's hit his hand. Yeah. Even though it hit a part of his chest before. Even though
he was looking away and he was actually pointing at something else that was going on that he thought should be going on behind him. It was mad, but
it's going to get into the situation where, your arms are out, but what level are they in a natural position?
Yeah, I think it's making your body bigger or not is the thing.
Yeah, it's all that. But look at we've all played the game to some level. Us three here, none of us at a particularly high level. But you're often in a defensive situation where you're going to try and get a block on a fella making a cross, and the biggest issue in your mind is usually, can I get there quick enough? Can I get some bit of me foot across it, and I hope he doesn't check by me and leave me on the ground looking like a gobdaw, right? And that's it's not usually about, is my arm, as I try to get a bit of balance, is it 6 inches closer to my side? Is it out a little bit too far that it hits me in the eye? You know, and now you see a lot of fellas coming nowadays, and they're running up to tackle a bloke with their arms behind their back, 2 hands joined together. It's kind of mad stuff that doesn't. It's very hard to judge whether a player is trying to make his body bigger or not, because if his intent is to try and block across, you have to throw yourself at it, and your arms move unintentionally in different directions. Yeah. So it's a real mad one. But look, you can't go to a situation if the ball hits a fella's hand, it's a penalty. You can't go to that, because then you'll have players deliberately lifting the ball onto blokes' hands,
like something like hockey.
Yeah, that's a bit of a...
Also, as well, everything looks worse in slow motion. Like, when you see it in slow motion, it clearly hits someone's hand. But I think the officials are saying, look, the first thing we'll do is we'll watch it back in real time, because that's how the incident happened. If you put it in slow motion, of course you're going to say, looks like it hit his hand.
But I think, Phil, this is going to be the one that may bring a lot of the debate this year about the handball rule, until they get that sorted out. And they generally do get things sorted out in football. The offside rule is still a bit about that, but most people just put up with it.
Okay, Brian, we got one-word answers here. We got your top 4, so Manchester City, Liverpool, Spurs and Chelsea. Your bottom 3?
Oh, we'll see. Norwich, Sheffield United, and for pig iron, Brighton, because they sacked Chris Hughton.
Yeah, you know, that was a pretty poor decision. Golden Boot winner? Harry Kane, Aubameyang, Aguero?
I go with Aguero this year. Again, he's always there thereabouts. I think Harry Kane can't really sustain it. He's been brilliant, Harry Kane. Could someone else emerge?
Salah?
I don't think Salah will go back to the 44 goals. Firmino, Mane playing. I'd stick with Aguero.
Champions League winner?
Haven't a clue at this stage. Too early, John. We haven't even played. We'll be playing the playoff round soon. We'll be covering that on Virgin Media Sport. And Ajax are in the.
Are you going to any gigs at the moment? Are you going to any good gigs recently?
We've had a few over the summer. Mixed, I'd say, John, in terms of the excellence. Not enough. I'm not organised enough about getting tickets either. Is part of my problem. But I'm going to get to more now this year. I swear I will.
Well, Brian, you're an absolute gem for coming in. Thanks so much.
It's a pleasure, John, and I hope the rest of the day works very well. I'm sure you'll have a lot more wisdom around the place than those words that I gave in relation to. But I really am looking forward to it again. And last year was great that we had a real battle for the title. For the first time for a few seasons, to be honest. We've had too many seasons where it's been about who's going to end up in the bottom 4 and who's going to finish 3rd last. We had a real title chase last year. Let's hope there are more people involved in it this year, and more brilliant football, exciting football, because certainly the top 2 and Spurs and United at times and Chelsea at times played some fabulous football, as did Arsenal, but they were too brittle at the back, and it's the brittleness at the back that makes the whole thing more exciting.
Brian, thanks so much. Thanks so well, Phil, for the last 2 hours of great coverage. And Brian will be with us on our Off the Ball channels on radio for the next 9 months.